There are so many times in a queer person's life when they're looking to create a family that they feel isolated and alone and as though they don't know where to find the answers to the questions that they have. Certainly, that was the case for my guest this week, Kirsty Loehr. She and her ex-wife knew that they wanted to become parents. They wanted to engage in reciprocal IVF, but how do you do that? Who helps with that? Where do you find the answers to the questions that you have? Well, Kirsty did her research and they dug in, and now they have a beautiful family, and their son is 4 years old. Kirsty wanted things to be a little easier for the people coming behind her. She already had written a book about queer feminism and queer women in history. Now was the time for her to sit down and put together another short history of queer parenting book so that other people behind her can have the answers to the questions that they need to have answered, and they can get ready to be the parents that they've always dreamed of being. Kirsty is my guest this week. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. Today, I have the opportunity to introduce you to Kirsty Loehr, who is an author and parent living in the UK. And Kirsty is going to be part of the month of authors that I have coming up. I'm very excited to be able to incorporate this conversation into just the opportunity for parents to learn and grow from one another through the written word. So thank you very much for agreeing to be here today, Kirsty. Please tell everyone about who you are, the members of your family, what you do, all the things.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be here to talk about all things queer families and queer parenting. So, my name's Kirsty. I'm from Manchester in the UK originally, but I live in Brighton, which is I guess, the gay capital of the UK, it's known as.
There
A
you
lot of
go.
history here with queer people. Um, but luckily, the UK as a whole is a welcoming place. I
Nice.
mean, at the moment, you c- you could say a lot more, but I mean, if you compare it to the rest of the world, it's yeah, I'm very lucky to live here. Definitely. So I have a little boy who's 4 years old who was conceived via IVF, reciprocal IVF with my ex-wife. He's starting school in 2 weeks, which
Mm.
is very exciting. Actually, 2 week next week. Actually, yeah, it's next week. I'm currently with my partner. We've just moved in together, and she has two kids from a heterosexual relationship. So we're all figuring out how to live in a big house as a blended family at the moment, which is pure chaos.
Yep.
And yeah, it's terrifying, won't lie. Also, also very nice, but it's very new. It's like the last month or so this has happened. So my life has suddenly taken a very different direction than what I initially thought it was going to be.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm embracing the chaos.
And all three kids get on well, do they?
Yeah, yeah, very, very lucky. Um, they're older than my son, a little bit older. So there's a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And it's been really nice actually, because the eldest has been making my son breakfast in the morning. I mean, I don't know
Excellent.
how long this is going to last, but I lived with my son on my own for the last 2 years, and he's asserting some kind of independence at the moment. And the 9-year-old is also taking on a little bit of independence with I don't know, caring for him and seeing him as another sibling. So it's all a bit of a learning curve. It's nice. I mean, I
Mhm.
get to stay in bed, but yeah, it's definitely strange.
And you are many other things, but the reason you're here today is to talk a little bit about the fact that you're an author. and not just for the
Yeah.
book that's coming out in October, but can you give a bit of a history as to how you fell into this role of author and the type of writing that you're putting together?
Yeah, of course. So I was living in Sweden with my ex-girlfriend, who's Swedish, and this was pre-Brexit. So you could travel around Europe and live in different countries and go to university for free. Crazy,
Mhm.
crazy world.
Yes.
But that was something that was possible, and I was so lucky enough to be able to do that. Not once, but twice. I lived in Italy as well. And I was able to do a master's in creative writing, completely free. Got to live in Sweden with my girlfriend. It was really a dream. Met some of my best friends on that course, and I always considered myself a feminist before, but it was that course that really introduced me to a lot of feminist literature and a lot of feminist nonfiction, and opened the doors to queer theory, which I'd already studied at school doing my BA. But I really understood, got to a place where I could understand it because, as we know, queer theory can be very jarring, very inaccessible. It's very academic,
Hmm.
and I wanted to tap into that, but in a way where it was a bit more accessible and funny too. So I decided to start writing my own queer writing, but in a more accessible way. So I write nonfiction, but I try to tend to stay away from the theatrical side. It's in there, of course, because it has to be, but in a way that isn't as jarring. So that's
Hmm.
what really led me onto that path, was doing that MA in Sweden.
And so, what was the first book that you published?
So the first book was a short history of queer women, which is a telling of a chronological timeline of queer history and reinserting those people back into history. Again, like I said, it's a bit tongue in cheek. It's funny. It's, queer history is dark. It's depressing,
Hmm.
and so I mean, there's no getting away from that, and we should always acknowledge it because that's how we learn to hopefully not do the same thing again. But I also found that in queer history, there are really nice romantic stories. There's a lot of sex, there's fun. People fell in love. People maybe had horrible, horrific lives, but in those moments, they did fall in love and have really nice relationships. And that was what I wanted to highlight. So it's kind of a romp through time, really. So that was the first one. And then it led me on to queer families and queer parenting because in my personal life, that was also what I was going through. And the same thing again, I thought, where are all the queer parents in history? They must exist. Of course they do.
Hmm.
And then I decided to go and find them all.
That's amazing. So I want to dive into that, but first, I want to talk just briefly about your own experience with family creation because that gives you a lens with which to then do the research that you do to put the book together that you've created. So you and your ex-wife chose to have a child to do reciprocal IVF. May I ask who carried and whose eggs?
Yeah, of course. I love talking about it. It was my eggs and my ex-wife carried, and that was the route that we always wanted to go down. So that was always the
Yeah.
choice, yeah.
Did you ever have a desire to carry?
No, not no, definite no. I mean, there's after having him, I immediately wanted another, and it was clear that my ex-wife, didn't want to carry. And there was a moment where I did think, if we are to have another, it will be me that will have to carry it. And there was a moment, and also as a single parent, when I was single, there was another moment where I thought, could I do this? But I've always had, I mean, not, I guess, a fear. I don't know if it's a fear. It's not of labor. I'm not scared of labor. I love an experience, and I would I would love to experience that experience, giving birth.
Mm-hmm.
It would be incredible. It's the pregnancy that doesn't sit right with my body. I don't know if it's some sort of body dysphoria. I don't know what it is. I've written little bit about it in the book, and it would be interesting to see if other people that do identify as lesbian, as a cis woman, if they have the same thing, because it's just something that I just can't wrap my head around. I can't imagine being pregnant. I don't, the idea of my hips winding and my boobs getting bigger, and becoming quite feminine in a way that I don't think I don't think I'd be able to deal with well.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was always a thing that was a bit scary.
It's not an unusual approach, in all honesty. I think that sometimes it almost feels to for some of the people that I talk to, it almost feels more unlikely that both would want to carry than both would want to carry. In many of the same-sex lesbian relationships that I know of, where both people
Mm.
have a uterus, only one of them has any interest in really using it. And it isn't, in some cases, it isn't even a feminist or feminine kind of an approach, because I know some very femme women who are like, nope, that's not going to be my uterus. If we're having a child, it's going to be with my partner. And I love that we have the option.
No, it's great, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
what dreams are made of.
It's
But
true.
yeah, and then I write a bit more about that in the book as well, because obviously a lot of trans men have gone on to have children
Mhm.
and the battles there with gender dysphoria and things like that, but also a lot of trans men that have chosen to have children
Mhm.
because they just want to. So yeah, it's like you said, it's a gift that we can have that choice. It just seems with queer parenting there are a lot more options,
Mhm.
than the standard typical heterosexual way of having a child.
Well, and that's just it, right? In a heterosexual relationship, you know, if you're going to have a family that's biologically related to you, there's a
Yeah,
really strong likelihood you're going to have to use your uterus unless you use a
exactly.
surrogate. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the other thing that I had with that as well though was I did want my son or my child to be genetically related to me, and there was a lot of guilt with that as well. A lot of it was like, why is this so important to me?
Hmm.
um and then but then why won't you get pregnant? And y there was a lot of battling with that, with am I being selfish, blah 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 blah. But I don't think it's a bad thing to want to be genetically related to your child. And I've had a lot of people come up to me say like, why didn't you adopt? And it's like, heterosexual people do not get asked that question whenever someone announces that they're pregnant. It's not the first thing someone says to them is, oh well, why didn't you adopt?
Right. It's true. And the thing about being humans is that we all have different needs and wants. And so if the option is available to you to have a biologically related
Mhm.
child, then why not investigate that option?
That was exactly it.
Now, you've used reciprocal IVF. Did you know your donor, or did you use a sperm bank, an unknown donor?
I was dreading but I don't like, I've got a bit of a phobia of sperm. I don't like it, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was kind of dreading that process. It just wasn't important. But then we used the European Sperm Bank, and I just loved the whole thing. It's like shopping on Amazon. It really is. I just got so invested. So you can choose, you find there's everything available. Background, parents, you hear a voice, you can see a handwritten note, you see a picture of them as a baby, but not as an adult, which is fair enough. Obviously, they don't use their real name. They tell you if this has succeeded before. There's a limit on how many vials of sperm you can get. There's a limit on how many successful pregnancies that the person can make. It's all just really clever and legitimate and safe.
Mhm.
So I really, really enjoyed that part of it. It was fun. It really was fun.
Going into it, did you have any specific specifications or history or ancestry or anything that you wanted to kind of make sure that the person had?
I think we were more thinking about my ex and how the child would be if the baby would look like her, because obviously if they were genetically related to me. But my ex-wife has blonde hair, but she's a real blonde, and blue eyes. So it was kind of easy. So we did go blonde, blue eyes. So it was quite simple actually. And our son, well, he looks exactly like me, exactly. But also he does look like my ex-wife as well.
And it's amazing how that can happen, right? Because you
It
look at
really
your
is.
ex-wife and you think we don't look anything alike, and
No,
yet
not at all.
you created this human that has a resemblance to both of you.
Exactly. And she did, she grew him. And there's been a bit of research into this with the DNA and people who carry and grow the baby. And it would be I don't see how that would not be the case.
Hmm.
Someone grows a fetus from and then gives birth to the baby. It's like, how are they not? There must be something there.
Yes, absolutely.
Genetically, yeah, yeah,
Epigenetics, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think it's fascinating. It truly is
It
fascinating.
really is.
So you've had your son with your ex-wife. At some point following that, his arrival, the two of you realized that you weren't going to succeed as a married couple any further. But now you have a human in your life, and you have to figure out how to put his needs above all the other needs. How are the two of you navigating that? Is it going fairly smoothly or?
We it wasn't that long after he was just about to turn 2 when we separated. It was messy. It wasn't a good breakup. We still don't really get on that well, but we've always put him before everything else. And it's been good in that it's been 50-50 completely and always has been.
Mhm.
And going from having him all the time to 50-50 is not the best thing in the world. It's
No.
not ideal. It's horrific, actually, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And it took a lot of getting used to, and it still does, still hurts every Friday that I hand him back. But it's I'm in a lucky enough position to have an ex that is on the same level as me in terms of, wanting him 50-50 and providing for him. And I can always count on her that she'll always be there. And hopefully she can always count on me that I'll always be there. So as far as parenting goes up to now, it's been quite smooth. But then we obviously have school next, and then high school, and then I'm really dreading high school. But all the things that come with those. So I mean, at the moment, yeah, it's good, but it was really hard. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life, by far.
And we don't have children with the expectation that the person we're with is not going to be the person that we're raising them with, or that they won't be with us all the time. Like that, and that's the hardest part, right? It's a change in the picture that we had for ourselves for our future when we decided to create a family.
Yeah, it's to go from 2 years of just having this little boy around and being with him at every single moment to suddenly just seeing him every other week. It's traumatic. It's the worst thing that could ever happen, but it's also, at least I have him and he's there and he's safe and he is flourishing. So yeah, all good.
That's all you can hope for.
Sadly.
And it does geographically tie you down to an area as well, too, right? Because you want to be close to him at all times, whether he's with you or he's with your ex. So then it's a good thing that you've found your spot in Brighton, that you
Yeah.
can feel comfortable there and you can know that there are other families around too, right? Because that's a big part of being a queer parent, is wanting your children to see other families that look like theirs in their day-to-day growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am lucky that we're in Brighton because the UK, there are obviously queer families,
Hmm.
but it's not as common as you'd hope. And in Brighton, there are the most. So we're lucky enough to be in a place where there are the most. It's also the most expensive place in the UK, which is annoying.
Oh, of
But
course.
I know it has to be, doesn't it?
Of course it does. Of course.
I
What
know,
makes
but in his current school though, I I did ask obviously about queer families, and they said there are at least one queer family in every school year, which to me as a millennial, growing up in Manchester, I don't think I ever met a person with a queer family as
right.
a youngster anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, did you?
I did not. I grew up in a small town, so it wasn't nowhere near as big as Manchester, but no. no queer families around at all, which is, yeah. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back.
Hi there. I'm Rowan J. Knox, author, speaker, and human rights advocate. I'm also a dad, and my kids are growing up. And now that they are growing up, my partner Danny and I are trying something new. We are opening a trans-owned and operated coffee shop in the heart of Toronto's LGBTQ village. It's going to be called Understory, and we really hope you'll check it out when it opens this winter. If you want to know more, you can visit us at understorycafe.com. See you soon, Toronto.
Which makes me happy that there are more and more out queer families looking to connect with other out queer families so that they can show their children these spaces and these humans whose family dynamics look like your own, so that or 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 at least have some similarities, so that there's, I mean, they don't typically see it in movies, children's movies especially. It can be hard to find in books, and we're about to get back to your book. There's so few places that they can see representation, so that they, because we don't want them to grow up thinking that they're other, that they're weird, that they're different. I mean, every kid feels that for some reason or another as they're growing up. But for their family dynamic, we want them to feel like we're just another family.
I know, that's the dream, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. So, how did you come to start putting together your queer parenting book? A Short History of Queer Parenting is the title of the book. It's being released October 2nd. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And people will be able to get it in all kinds of places. I will, in the show notes, link to One World Publications, because I believe that's where you're publishing through. Is that
Yeah.
correct? So
Yeah.
people will be able to find out where they can get it through there. But can you put some context to how you came to this?
Yeah, so like you said before, it was my own journey
Hmm.
that led me to it. Initially, it was going to be about how to have children as a queer parent
Hmm.
in those words or some other. But when I first decided or realized, I think probably the best word, that I could have children was I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. And once I realized that actually I'd always been quite maternal and always wanted children. I just hadn't tapped into it because I just grew up believing that I couldn't.
Hmm.
So once you believe that you can't do something, you tend to just put that aside and move on. And this isn't just like, oh, I can't play football, I'm not good enough. It's like, no, you actually can't have a child because there's nothing there that will help you do that. But then I read an article about I think it was two lesbians that I did reciprocal IVF because I always had this fear of, being pregnant and thought, wow, that is exactly what I want to do. Realized it was very expensive, but also realized I didn't understand how it works as well. Science is incredible, but again, very inaccessible. The words IVF, things like this is how do we access it? How do we pay for it? Where do we get it from? Are we allowed it in different countries? We have different rules. There are loopholes. It's a minefield and can put anyone off. If anyone looks into that, it could be just no, that's too much information. I can't handle it. So initially it was a book about all the different options, but then I thought you can list all these options, but then also where's all the representation?
Yeah.
Like you said before, yeah, queer media especially, that was a part of my book that I found really difficult. Where are all the queer parents? Where are all the queer families on TV? Where are they in children's books? Where are they in literature? Where are they in music? In anything? It was just completely invisible. They're there, obviously, but very limited. And then I just looked, I kind of pitched that to my publishers, and they said, do the same thing, do a chronological timeline, and also this time incorporate your story as well, and try to incorporate the different options that people could tap into. It doesn't have to be overwhelming and overbearing and scary. It could just be examples of other people that have undergone the same things, and short and quick, like the first book, not a lot of information. And yeah, that was basically where what happened, and I wrote it.
And is there a lot of history, queer history? I mean, because I don't think that you were alone. I know you're not alone in the in having had the idea sort of when you come to the realization that you are queer, whether you are 9 years old, whether you're 19, or whether you're 39, you recognize the queerness about yourself, and then the picture, the narrative you've had in your head about becoming a parent, as you say, it shifts, right?
Mm.
From especially for people who are assigned female at birth, we are conditioned from a very young age to think about the fact that at some point we will be having children. And so that's part of your internal dialogue all of your life. And then the reality about knowing that you're attracted to somebody of the same sex and or people of the same sex, and so a heterosexual relationship is not going to be in the cards for you, really rewrites that whole narrative in your head. It takes a long time for you to wind back. As you said, you were in your late 20s, early 30s before you kind of went, oh, this is possible. So if that's the way things are now, when things feel like they are that much more progressive than they were 20 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is, how do you find those stories of family creation in a historical sense? Because I can't imagine that that was an easy go.
No, not at all. I think this is where the gift of the word queer comes in. So when you queer read things, it opens up a lot of doors to people that may not have necessarily been heterosexual. They would challenge the heteronormativity, the heteronormative lifestyle, and challenging heteronormativity. And when you say queer, it doesn't necessarily mean, that you might be a lesbian or gay or trans, but you're just, you're challenging that heteronormative lifestyle.
Mhm.
And when you put a queer lens on history, they just shine, they come out, they, come out. I mean, for the better of the word, but they do. And you see them all a lot more clearly. And with the first book, that's exactly what I did. And some people got annoyed with me queering people because they didn't have the voice to say whether they were well, whatever they identified as. But I think if someone has a problem with you saying someone might be queer, I think the issue is probably them rather than
Fair.
you, you know?
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of homophobia in there because I mean, a lot of white male historians have constantly told us lots of things, and that's fine apparently. But as soon as you put a queer lens on things, people get mad, don't they? But
No, especially if you're a
with
woman
queer
trying to write
families and
that.
things, yeah, yeah, exactly. But with queer history and queer parents, you just look at history in a different way. You look at it in a queer lens, and you think that that person is doing things differently, and let's look more into that. We have someone like Sappho, who we know nothing really much about. A lot of people have put their own history onto her, but we do know that she wrote poems, sexual love, romantic poems to other women. So we do know that. And there is some evidence to suggest that she had a child. So for me, that is a queer person having a child.
Fair.
So it's just instances like this. And then unfortunately, there are a lot of points during when we do get media and things like that. So in the 70s and 80s, where there's a lot of court cases where queer people have had their children taken away from them. And we do have a lot of information there where we can highlight with lots of different people. So I found a lot of things there. And then in the 70s, with the rise of second wave feminism and things like that, and a lot of women, a lot of cis women leaving their husbands with the children to then live with another person in a queer relationship.
Hmm.
So maybe not necessarily having a child with another queer person like I did,
Hmm.
but having a child with a heterosexual person and then going on to have a queer family. Those particular families I was really, really interested in because it starts off as that heterosexual presenting family. And when a person maybe leaves that and moves into a relationship with a queer person, it changes. The family becomes a queer family,
Hmm.
and that really should be recognized a lot more, I think, through history, is those families that are like that. So there's a lot of stories in London in particular that I really enjoyed. There was a person in Belgravia that he was a doctor, and he personally helped a lot of cis women have children via IVF, which was quite new at the time. And yeah, it just leads you into lots of different things. And then you also look at famous people, a lot of famous people that were queer who have children. Again, queer, it's a queer family, it's a queer parent.
Sure.
So as soon as you open that door, they just kind of all come running out.
And and it makes you feel less alone in the parenting process, right?
Hugely, yeah, massively. Because it can be a lonely road,
Mhm.
especially the beginning when you are trying to figure out how to have a child. And then even, you know, we did reciprocal IVF, so going through the NHS, which are wonderful, and that's the national healthcare in the UK. But going through that as a queer person is a lot different going through that than a heterosexual person, because the rules and regulations are designed for heterosexual people, and queer people don't get the same access to services that heterosexual people get. There's not enough training for the doctors and nurses who are doing the best they can, but
Mhm.
there's limited training. They don't know how to speak to queer people. They they say the wrong things a lot of the times, and it can be a very stressful and triggering experience for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's really unnecessary. That doesn't need to happen. But
Yeah.
the government are not going to put money into training people for those kind of things, are they? So
And part of the problem is that generally speaking, when someone is going to a fertility clinic and they're in a heterosexual relationship, it's because they have been trying. And so there
yeah,
is a known fertility challenge presenting.
yeah,
And so the care providers around them all assume that everybody they get painted all with the same brush. Everybody must have a problem getting pregnant that's coming in here, and that's not necessarily the case. So there is that worry that gets kind of dumped upon you that you don't necessarily need to have right from the outset.
yeah. You need you do need a strong skin really to go through it, which is not, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't
Mhm.
have to do that. But there were a lot of there were a lot of things that happened to us during the whole process that were just really horrible. And when my son was born, he was really sick. He couldn't breathe, and he was rushed to the ICU for 2 weeks. So he was there for 2 weeks. You think you prepare everything, don't you? And then that happens, and it's just so my ex-wife had a C-section, so she was rushed off somewhere else. So I went up to the ICU, to come to see where he is, if he's okay. And I walked through, and the doctor just looked at me and said, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm his mother." And she just went, "You don't look like you've given birth." That was the first thing she said to me.
Wow.
And my son, I think my son's about to die.
Right.
And she said it in front of everyone. And she's deciding if she thinks I'm his mum or not, because I don't look like I've given birth to him. And it's just these comments are
Yeah.
unnecessary. There's probably
Yeah.
no malice in what she said, but it's just, I will remember that now for the rest of my life.
But malice or not, you are already in a heightened state of emotional.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense, and I don't get.
No, I know. We had a doctor as well that was checking his ears, and he just said, "So, who's going to be his male role model?" That was his first question.
Oh my gosh.
Just from nowhere. That was just his first question, was who was going to be my son's, not nothing to do with him, my son's male role model. I was just like, do you want the job? Is that
I
what
was
you
going to
want?
say, was he auditioning?
I know, is it? It just gets to a point where you do have to laugh sometimes, because what else are you going to do?
Wow. And the thing that will always forever baffle me is that if a cisgendered heterosexual couple has a baby and then the man in the relationship dies, is that the question you ask? Where's his
Yeah,
male
no,
role model now?
no,
Like
no.
any more than you would if the mother died. Where's his female role model now? Like presumably as parents, you're going to surround your child with people who love them and support them and
I
guide
know.
them through this life. And really, that's not a male job or a female job. It's just the role of the people that you choose to put in your child's life.
Yeah. But as we said, the whole system of having children is very binary, isn't it?
Oh,
And
it is.
even from conception to when you go to the hospital to when you give birth or how the baby is delivered, it's also binary.
Hmm.
So there's a long way to go, but I also do like to count the good things, and I do have a son via this
Hmm.
process, and it's amazing. So yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
As you put this book together and as you've watched the progression through time, does that give you hope for what's coming?
It's funny because with the first book, people asked me that. They said, "Will it get better?" As in, will queer lives get better? And I was very pessimistic. This was 2022, and things don't look great now either, really, do they? But I was very pessimistic, and trans people are being persecuted all over the world.
Hmm.
There are talks in certain countries that queer marriage, gay marriage is going to get revoked. I worry for families and queer parents. So I read the book and I do see the progress because it's undeniable. There is progress.
Hmm.
But I'm not one of those people that will look at that progress and think, okay, we've done it now. It's There are still horrible things happening that
Right.
should not be happening. And for me to feel better about being positive, things need to be equal.
Yep.
And people aren't being treated as equals at the moment. In places where I live, in places that are in countries that are very different to my country, in countries that are very similar to my country, it's happening all over the world.
Mm.
And it's scary. As a queer parent, when you're a queer person without your child, you have you to look after.
Right.
So it's you. And queer people are usually very, well, we have to be. We're strong, we have armor because we
Hmm.
have to be.
Right.
When you have a kid, it just completely blows the whole thing up because now your concern is your child. So I have a lot of family in the States. My he's from the States. And I've not brought my son over there because I'm scared. I'm scared to bring him over there. I don't know what the repercussions would be. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm being ridiculous. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I read the news. I don't know what's going on over there. Would I come back with my son? He's half American. Would that have something to do with, do they have some sort of rights over? I don't know. Because you read these things, things are becoming more and more like Handmaid's Tale every day. You never know what's going to happen.
It's true.
So so no, yeah, sorry to say it, yeah, bluntly, no, I don't think it's there's progress, much progress really.
Yeah, when it comes to parenting, especially, I feel like that's where the restrictions are still being really hammered down. More people are out, more people are proudly out, more people are being assaulted and affected negatively because they've made the decision to be out. But internationally, fewer of them are being arrested simply for loving who they love. But you're right, you add that layer of parenting to it, and it's hard not to feel a little bit pessimistic about it, and then just want to sort of hide in your own little bubble where things are okay. And
Yeah.
that's what we do. Protect our children.
Yeah, but queer families are a danger to the patriarchy, aren't they, and to how the world works because it's not following that traditional heteronormative route, which doesn't sit well with how things are governed or how the patriarchy works. So that needs to get dismantled, doesn't it? So
We're afraid of the things that we don't understand.
yeah,
Instead of being interested in learning more to understand,
yeah.
listen to understand, listen to learn. Instead, we become reactive and afraid. Okay. To wrap to wrap this up though, because your family is doing well and
Yeah.
queer parenting is working for you, can you tell me what is your very, very favorite part of parenting your son?
Wow. So many things. I'm not one of those parents that is like, oh, I just love being a parent. It's everything about me, blah, 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 blah. It's hard. I
Mhm.
didn't know how hard it was going to be. It's hard. But by far the best thing I've ever done in my entire life. I think it's watching my son learn, and he's had a few setbacks in his life. He had mobility issues, and he couldn't walk for a long time, and we were told that he might not ever walk. And then he did. He started walking, finally started walking about 2.5. And to watch him really, like the determination and strength of a little person who is trying to figure out how to do something in this world or navigate a way of doing it is so incredible to watch. And I love to just watch him do things like that, no matter how big or small. So learning to walk, which is humongous,
Mhm.
just to watch him do that was a privilege. But also just to watch him figure something small out. If he's playing with a little bit of Lego, and just I just watch him and I watch his brain work and just how he manages to just figure something small out in a world in the world that he's in. It's incredible to watch a
Mhm.
little human just become more human, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And like he's 4 now, so watching him put words together, watching him speak, he sings a lot, he likes to make songs, his imagination is incredible, and just yeah, the development is wild, and he spent such a long time not walking, and then now he walks, and then you just suddenly forget about all those times that he wasn't walking, and I wish I don't know, I know a lot of people say this, but I wish I was a bit more in the present, when you are parenting, because it does go so fast.
I
It
know.
feels slow, but it's so fast that you just I can't remember what it was like when he didn't talk, because now he just talks, talks, talks. But I just don't remember now what it was like when he didn't talk. So I wish I was a bit more present in those moments, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's just wild. It's wild watching a little person just grow up.
Mhm. Oh, I fully agree. And that doesn't stop. And the parts that you love now will be parts that you retain, but then the next stage will come and there'll be parts of that you
No,
love so much. You think, well, did I love that as much as I love this because I love this
yeah,
so much? And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty fantastic for sure. Can
yeah,
you
it really is.
can you tell everyone where they can find you? Do you have a website or an Instagram profile or somewhere that they can follow you to keep up with your progress in your writing and everything else?
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's Kirsty Loehr, Loehr, just how my name is spelled. My Instagram is a lot more positive. This was very sad. I know, I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
not,
usually very funny.
it's, I found you quite engaging. So
My books are also really funny, believe it or not. They're known for the sense of humor. So,
excellent.
but sometimes we do have to speak about the real stuff. But yeah, my Instagram is Kirsty Loehr. Um, what else? That's it. I don't have Twitter or X anymore because it's toxic.
It is. It is.
I
But
know.
there's lots of space for happiness and fun and light on Instagram. So there you go.
Yeah, well, I know, and then but even Instagram, it's not run by the best people. But you need to make your money. So as a queer person, get it where you can.
Absolutely. And if we can stick it to the proverbial man, then there you
Exactly.
go.
Yeah.
So much the better,
Ex
right?
yeah. And the book is out October 2nd, and you can get it in all independent bookstores, but also in the bigger ones.
Wonderful. Excellent. I look forward to having a chance to have a copy of it in my hot little hands very soon.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me today to talk about the work you do, the writing you do, and about your beautiful little family.
Thank you so much.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable pasts and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.